From Green Bay Packers to prison, serial killer Randy Woodfield. Born at Salem, Oregon, in December 1950, Randy Woodfield was the classic, all-American boy next door. He made good grades, and high school coaches recognized his natural athletic talents, making him the star of Newport's football team. When Woodfield started to expose himself in public, everybody laughed it off at first, and members of the coaching staff suppressed his first arrest to keep him eligible for the squad. In August 1970, attending college in Ontario, Oregon, he was picked up again, this time for vandalizing an ex-girlfriend's apartment. 2 years later, in Vancouver, Washington, he logged his first adult arrest on charges of indecent exposure, receiving a suspended sentence. A similar arrest in Portland earned him more suspended time in June of 1973. Woodfield got a break that year, when he was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, but he could not shake his problems with a trip across the country. In 1974, after a dozen flashing incidents called unwelcome attention to Randy, the Packers gave up and sent him home. The local boy made good was coming home in failure, a disgrace. In early 1975, several Portland women were accosted by a knife-wielding young man, forced to perform oral sex before they were robbed of their handbags. Policewomen were staked out as decoys, and Woodfield was arrested on March 3, after stealing marked money from one of the officers. In April, he pled guilty to reduced charges of second-degree robbery, receiving a sentence of 10 years in prison. 4 years later, in July 1979, Woodfield was freed on parole. On October 9, 1980, a former classmate of Randy's, Cherie Ayers, was raped and murdered in Portland, bludgeoned about the head and stabbed repeatedly in the neck. Woodfield was routinely questioned and refused to sit for polygraph examinations. Homicide detectives found his answers generally evasive and deceptive, but his blood type did not match the semen found inside the victim's body, and he was not charged. A short month later, still in Portland, Darcy Fix and Doug Altick were shot to death, execution style, in Altick's apartment. A .32 caliber revolver was missing from the scene, and while the female victim had been formerly involved with one of Woodfield's closest friends, police had nothing to suggest that Randy was the killer. On December 9, 1980, a young bandit wearing a fake beard held up a gas station in Vancouver, Washington. 4 nights later, in Eugene, Oregon, the same man raided an ice cream parlor, rebounding on December 14 with the robbery of a drive-in restaurant at Albany. A week later, in Seattle, the gunman added a new twist, trapping a waitress in the restroom of a chicken restaurant and forcing her to masturbate him. 20 minutes later, smiling through his phony beard, he robbed another ice cream parlor and escaped with cash in hand. January was another busy month for the gunman. Police were already calling the I-5 Bandit after his apparent highway of preference. On the 8th, he raided the same Vancouver gas station a second time, forcing a female attendant to expose her breasts after looting the till. 3 days later, he robbed a market in Eugene, surfacing at Sutherland.